Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Books Beside My Bed video. This is a weekly series where I recount all of the books that I have read in the last 7 days, and if you're interested, there is a whole playlist of every Books Beside My Bed video from this year, which has been an ongoing project of mine. I'm going to jump straight into it. This is my reading week from the 11th to the 17th of November. I read 5 books this week and DNF'd 1. I read a total of 2,050 pages and my yearly reading total is up to 236 books. Tome Topple and the One Readathon started this week on Friday my time, so I have read 2 books for Tome Topple so far this week, and I've got a few more books to read as well. I'm going to start really quickly with the book that I DNF'd this week, which was Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller. Kirsten? Yes, Kirsten Miller. There's nothing actually bad about this book. I just didn't really connect with it. I'm currently at a point where I'm getting really frustrated with books. So if I'm not enjoying something, I am putting it down and I'm basically I'm going to get rid of it. I don't need it in my life. Not because it's a bad book or it's badly written, just because it's not for me at this particular point in time and I just need some space and I need to be reading books that I'm really enjoying. I can't even remember the main character's name in this, but it is a world where there is a new type of virtual reality game that comes out. It is very, very lifelike when you're in there, and once you're in, there's almost no way to get out of it. And that's about as far as I got. I got to about 100 pages. Yeah, I don't know. Just something about it rubbed me the wrong way, and I think it was the main character. So I'm saying goodbye to it. So the first book that I read all the way through this week was Perfect 10 by Jacqueline Ward. This was sent to me for review by Allen and Unwin. It was published in October this year, 2018, by Atlantic, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is a domestic thriller, and I have to say I have not been so stressed out when reading a book for a very long time, and I didn't particularly like the feeling. I don't like being... It is the story of Caroline, whose husband has left her after she accused him of having an affair, and he has taken their children and essentially ruined her reputation by labeling her unstable and unfit to care for the kids. Caroline is an incredibly competent woman, and when she acquires her husband's journal in which he has kept records of all the affairs he's had, including his ratings of the women that he slept with, hence the title Perfect 10, she decides that she is going to ruin him. It's spectacular and terrifying, and honestly, he is an absolute disgrace of a human being, but Caroline scared the crap out of me too in this particular book, because she doesn't really care too much initially about who she hurts in the process of trying to ruin her husband's reputation and get her kids back. And so it goes on from there as she uses social media to absolutely ruin him. Well written, worth a read if you like this sort of thing. Very effective use of social media and makes me want to delete my Facebook account right now. Then I read The Tides Between by Elizabeth Jane Corbett. This was published in 2017 by Odyssey Books and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is a historical fiction with possible magical realism leanings in it. It is set in 1841 on a ship where a group of people are travelling from England to Australia to begin life anew, and it's all the people who are birthed in steerage. We begin the story from the perspective of Bridie, who is a young girl travelling with her mother and her stepfather to Australia. Bridie's father died and she is still very connected to him and his memory, whereas her mother and her stepfather would prefer that she moves on. But once she is on board the ship, she makes a connection to a young man and his young wife, and they really come to grips with the secrets that they're carrying through the power of story, because he is a storyteller and a musician. This was actually a surprising read for me. I did enjoy it. I'm not huge on historical fiction, as you guys know, and I did enjoy it. It took me a long time to read it though, because it's just not a genre that I find myself drawn to all the time. But it was nice and it was lyrical and it was very sweet, and the ending broke me because something happens and I'm not okay with it, because it's heartbreaking what happened, and I almost wish there was a second book to find out if the characters find out what actually has happened, because they don't know and we as the readers know, and that's what made it so sad. Then I read a review copy from NetGalley. It was called Cold Brew Killing by Lena Gregory. This was published the start of this month in 2018 by Lyrical Underground, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a cozy mystery and this one was just so much fun. It's actually the 3rd book in a series, which I didn't realize when I requested it, but it doesn't really matter because you can sort of read it anyway. And it tells the story of Gia, who runs the all-day breakfast cafe in a small town, and she has built up some friends and she's got some regular customers and people who help her out in the cafe. She's relatively new to the area, I think at the start of the first book, and so she's still finding her feet, and the connections that she's made are really important to her because she doesn't really have any other family. At the time of the book, there are elections for the local mayor, and one of the candidates is found dead in a freezer in one of the local stores belonging to a good friend of hers, and he is accused of the murder, and Gia decides that she is going to try and prove that he is innocent, and the story goes from there. It was fun. There was a lot of friendships. There was some really good advice on adult friendships, which I thought was really, really lovely. Gia has a boyfriend and their relationship is quite strained because of his job, and it all felt very natural and not forced, and it's just sort of there, but it's not the central plot, which was nice. There was way too much description of food. I got very hungry while reading the story. I will probably try and find some of the other books in the series because I really enjoyed the characters. It was light, it was fun, it was easy to read. That's all I needed this week. And then I started my Tome Topple reads. The first book that I read for Tome Topple was Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. This was published this year in 2018 by Titan Books, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is the sequel to Vicious, and I absolutely adored Vicious. I thought it was fantastic because I love this idea of morally great characters, and this continues in this book, and we are dealing with Victor and Eli after the events of Vicious, and into the mix we've thrown a whole bunch of new characters. The entire story is told, it almost seems like a non-linear sort of storytelling style because we're constantly jumping backwards and forwards between multiple characters. There's a whole lot of character perspectives in here, and we're getting histories and current day events until all of the timelines converge to the present day right at the tail end of the book. So it was a really interesting way to tell the story, and I appreciated it, and I thought it was a really clever way to go about telling the story of all of these characters and filling in the history between Vicious and Vengeful because it takes place over the course of a number of years. I actually didn't feel like there was enough of Victor in here, but Victor is going through some serious problems as a result of what happened in Vicious, and he is not dealing with them particularly well. Sydney had a bigger role, which I absolutely adored, and so did Mitch. I wish there was more Mitch. He was absolutely wonderful. We got more of Eli's backstory, which was really fascinating to read because it does unpack why he is the way that he is. And then we have the introduction of 2 new female characters. The first one is June, who is very complex, and I suspect if there is ever any other books, we're going to focus on her character because her powers are really interesting, and she is a very interesting sort of character, and her motivations for doing things are all over the shop. And then there's Marcella, who is the villain of this particular book, and she is a piece of work. I thought Victor and Eli were an interesting set of villainous characters, but Marcella is Marcella takes the cake. She is so driven and ambitious, and her powers are so cool and so destructive that it was really, really fascinating to sort of see what happens. I wish I could have given it 5 stars, but the ending felt a little convenient, but it was still a really enjoyable read. It is really quick to read. Considering it's nearly 600 pages, it was actually very, very quick and easy to read. Short chapters, we moved through the story really quickly. I really appreciated that. So that is Vengeful, and I'm so glad that I have finally read it. And then I read a book that was not on my Tome Topple TBR, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to read something that I really wanted to, and I really wanted to listen to the audio of this, and that is Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, which is book 1 in the Illuminate files. I haven't read this in about a year and a half. No, 2 years. I haven't read it in 2 years. So I thought it was about time to do it, and I'm planning on rereading Gemna in January. Illuminate was published in 2015 by Allen and Unwin, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars both times that I read it, I believe. If you're not familiar with the book, and I'm not sure why you wouldn't be because it's all over BookTube, it is told in a mixed media sort of format in that you have chat logs, iMessages, memos, and all sorts of things. The first time I read it, I just read it. This time I listened to the audio, and it was really fantastic. I have tabbed it up this time because I wasn't tabbing books the last time that I read it. It is the story of Katie Grant and Ezra Mason, who are a boyfriend and girlfriend living on a mining colony planet on the outskirts of the universe until one day their planet is attacked by a rival mining corporation who are trying to take over the mining business there because that business was set up illegally in the first place. And so they release this biochemical agent onto the planet, and a whole bunch of people from the planet are rescued by either the Copernicus, the Hypatia, or the Alexander ships, and they are trying to reach a jump station so that they can go back and report the attack to the, I don't even know what they're called, the people in charge. Of course, everything goes horribly wrong and they are chased through space, and to add into the mix, you have an artificial intelligence, Aiden, who I love, one of my favorite characters in a book ever. He's gone a little bit insane, and it is basically a race to survive either attack or Aiden's interference, or even just the panic that overtakes the commanders of the various ships. I can't recommend this series highly enough. It is well worth reading and listening to it at the same time because it's a full cast audio. Really, really fun. Absolutely loved it. So glad that I read it this week because it has really made me feel good about reading. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of these books and your thoughts on them, or alternatively, let me know what you have been reading this week. Regardless, I hope whatever you have been doing, it has been a wonderful week for you. I hope that this week is just as fantastic. I will see you guys on Wednesday for my next video, and until next time, see you later, guys.